I'm still getting lots of messages on how to create lunchbox cakes, so let's make some holiday themed ones. I'll show you exactly how I baked and decorated these little Christmas trees, and I made 2 flavors because I couldn't decide which one would taste better at the time. There's a green velvet one with cream cheese frosting and a dark chocolate cake filled with marshmallow meringue. I baked these mini cakes in a silicone mold that I bought the other day when I dragged my husband to IKEA. It makes a pretty flat tree, which at first I was kind of bummed about until I found out that they fit perfectly inside my takeout containers, even when they're frosted. You can definitely go about this another way by baking a cake in a half sheet pan, which I have a few videos on. Then you want to cut rounds that sit on top of each other that get incrementally smaller, and you'll kind of get the same effect. So to start, we have to prep the molds, and you want to make sure that you spray them with cooking oil. The shape of the mold make them a little bit more difficult to remove, and the oil is just going to let it slide out much easier. So the 2 cake flavors are from my cakeculator. This one here is my red velvet cake recipe, and I just swapped the red food coloring for green. Everything else is exactly the same, and then I used my standard chocolate cake recipe. So for 3 of these molds, you want to use any recipe that states it'll make 1 dozen cupcakes, and you'll want to fill the molds until they reach that top crease that goes all around the base of the diamond before it starts to slant inwards. If you have any extra cake batter, you can definitely bake some cupcakes. As for the baking time, my cakes took around 35 minutes to bake fully at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and you'll see a sort of dome rise out of the top of each mold. Once you remove them from the oven, allow them to cool completely before attempting to remove them. You're going to want to have the structure of your cake to be completely set to have that on your side for removal. Mine were left to cool for about an hour at room temp. When I touched the cake in the silicone with my hands, there was absolutely no heat at all. Once your cakes are cool, it's time to trim them. Most likely your cakes will have domed in the center, and this is normal. It'll take longer for the cake to set in the innermost region of the cake mold, and that will inevitably push steam, and the leavening agents will continue to create carbon dioxide, which pushes the batter upwards before it finally sets. And to trim it, you just use the top edge of the mold as a guide and just cut straight across with a serrated knife. Now to remove the cake, you're going to loosen the top edge of the mold a bit from the cake. And with all silicone molds, you want to bend or manipulate the mold as much as possible without altering the shape or putting any kind of pressure on the cake. Although with this mold, it's a little bit difficult to turn completely inside out because those pieces of silicone on the outside that are used to stabilize the mold. So the best way to remove this cake in one piece is to turn it upside down, pull the mold apart gently while inverting the lip around the base, and you should feel the cake slide out onto your surface. Just be sure not to do it so far above your surface that the cake falls out and breaks when it hits the counter. I'm going to fill my cakes in addition to frosting the outside, so I'm going to core the diamonds or the trees. The only thing you have to be careful with is that the exterior surface of the cakes slope inward. So use that as a guide when carving so you don't poke a hole to the outside wall of your cakelets. I also saved the little cake pieces I initially cut out so I can cap the cakes on their bottoms. And as I said before, I'm using cream cheese frosting for the green velvet and vanilla marshmallow meringue for the chocolate, both of which I've done separate videos on, and I'll link to those down below. Once they're filled, I'll place them on squares of parchment, then inside their little boxes to get ready to decorate. To decorate, my number one choice is always going to be Swiss meringue buttercream. It just has better pipeability and a really smooth finish. This one here is a vanilla flavored one that I've colored using my favorite coloring cheat, which is the Coolers website. I just typed in Christmas and this palette popped up, and I thought it looked like the right shades of greens for trees and a bright red. I used Color Mill, which is an oil-based food coloring for the green colors, and for the bright red, I used a gel-based food coloring and the microwave method with Swiss meringue buttercream to get it really bright and use only a little bit of gel. In total, I decorated 6 cakes, and I tried to vary up the decorating a bit with these tips and colors, but I think they ended up looking pretty similar. They could be a set. I guess, I don't know, maybe y'all can tell me, or maybe I'm being overly critical. I tried to show at least a few different styles of piping designs, particularly really simple ones, because that's really all I can do. And I'm pretty sure that you all could come up with some better piping designs than I can with these cakes. So feel free to use any of my recipes in my cakeculator. You just choose 1 dozen cupcakes and it'll give you 3 of these cakes. And if you choose the frosting option, you'll get enough to decorate cakes just like this.